Hey everybody, welcome to Field of Dreams on ACTN. My name is Steve David, and I'm your host. And today I want to talk about we want to do a postmortem on the U17, under 17 national team that played in the recent tournament. And joining me on the set today is two of the big honcho gurus who knows everything there is to know about Trinidad football. And those are Alvin Henderson. Welcome to the set, Alvin.
Always a pleasure to be here, Steve.
And Narada Wilson. Welcome to the set, Narada.
All right. Glad to be considered a guru, and it's a pleasure to be here today.
Guys, I hope you guys looked at the under-17 tournament from start to end. I seen a few games, and I had to see it on the computer
Streams.
because in the U.S., where I was at the time, they wouldn't bring the games on live. So I would need you guys' assistance to help me break this down and talk about our under-17, good, the bad, and the indifferent as to what happened and where do we go from here.
Well, Steve, as we speak, the tournament is not yet over, so we know that we're not on live, so
Right.
The tournament is not yet over. So we may have to come back if we're going to talk about the semifinals and finals. But I think we've seen, I have seen a large majority of the games, both in the preliminary groupings and the first week, and then the second week, the round of 16, coming down to the 4 teams that are going to go to the World Cup. And to tell you the honest truth, I think the only surprise, in my opinion, judging from the first week of watching the teams play, was that Canada got past Costa Rica. In my opinion, I thought Costa Rica should have been able to beat Canada. They went to penalties, and you know sometimes that's a lottery. Haiti, Mexico, and the U.S. are the 4 teams that are in the semi-final, and they will be the teams that are also going to the World Cup. From very early in the tournament, Haiti showed us that they were going to be a team to be reckoned with, and they are the only team from the Caribbean who looked like they had a chance on this occasion to get into the Final Four, and thus a chance to get to the Under-17 World Cup.
You know, Haiti doesn't surprise me, and even with the women, Haiti is showing some interest in building the program, and that doesn't surprise me at all.
And it's strange because here we think that Haiti, one of the poorest countries in the Caribbean, and with the resources, sometimes you don't know where they get the resources from. I know a number of expats, Haitian expats in the U.S., help them out a lot. And a number of junior teams have gone, especially into the Miami and Florida area, and have spent time being close to the U.S. It's not that far to get a Haitian team across into Miami. And the expats over there are well organized, and they do a lot for groups of Haitian footballers, both male and female, in their preparation.
Mm-hmm. I agree with Doc. The teams that we've seen reach to the semi-final around now were the teams that, I don't want to say were expected, but had the right preparation going forward. The Canada as well was also a surprise for me. It also puts a lot of pressure on Trinidad, because now we're seeing that technically we have about 5 teams that we're behind, if you want to use that as a better word. Haiti, as most of the statistics with the top teams in the Caribbean show, one of our biggest setbacks is the fact that our domestic competition is not as competitive as some of the top teams in the Concacaf region. And Haiti has found a way time and time again to have players outside, as Doc said, in Miami, sometimes even having teams that are national teams be adopted into leagues in some of these states and playing. So they constantly have been exposed to a slightly higher level of football, and then it's shown on the field. But we also have to respect the fact that our team Did have some hiccups in terms of the funding with the coaching staff. We did go out and try to source some players. So I think the realistic expectation, we did reach where most persons thought we may have reached, considering the group that we were in, as well as what the results were. But it was unfortunate that we couldn't just get past one more team, because there was a possibility for us to at least reach to one game further before being kicked out of the tournament.
Ironically, if we had gone one game further and got past Honduras, we would have been playing against Haiti to try and get into that Final Four. So there was only going to be one team from the Caribbean anyway. And it was going to be extremely difficult for us, and perhaps very frustrating if we had gotten to that final hurdle and not been able to make it. Haiti just got past Honduras on penalty kicks, so it wasn't easy for them. And Honduras had shown their mettle in this tournament, because after a poor first round, where they didn't do too well in the first round, they were able to get to a point where they almost went to the Under-17 World Cup. Panama was a team that you said, well, ooh, Panama, how come they didn't make it this time? But unfortunately, they came up against in the roundabout, they came up against the U.S. And I saw that game, the whole of that game, and the U.S. is far superior to a lot of teams at this level. And I don't think the U.S. is even playing their best players. Their best players are still at this age. Some of them are already in Europe. And so the U.S. were playing like half and half. A number of players in the U.S. Who are already pros, playing at some of them playing in the MLS at this age. And there are a number of pros outside in some academies and some teams outside who probably could have played in this U.S. team as well.
But I think Mexico is ahead of the U.S. at this age, as under 17, because Mexico have done so much better at under 17 level. They eventually, I think they won a couple of times the World Cup.
They won a World Cup at under 17 level, and that golden generation with Vela and the two brothers who play with Los Angeles, people thought that they would go on to actually be in a semifinals of a World Cup, but they didn't quite make it. But Mexico has had at least 2 or 3 golden generations coming out of an under-17 World Cup, and we expect them to do fairly well in the World Cup when they get there. If Mexico doesn't get down to the final 8 in the Under-17 World Cup, I am very disappointed.
I think a large contributing factor to that has to do with the fact that Mexicans at that particular age, they are exposed to more professional football in the setting because they don't necessarily have that buffer of the universities like the States. Right. So the States, you kind of have a split. You may have half the population going to university and half going pro. With Mexico, it's probably, more than 80% of the footballers would go the direction of pro in an academy setup in Mexico by that age.
Yeah, I remember, this is so far back, but we went to Mexico on loan, me and Archie, and a lot of the young players was attending school while they're playing professional.
Yeah.
It's not like they go to college and then after they graduate, they go to play professional. They do it together.
Well, a number of the U.S. People at that age now, at 17 years old, 18 years old, they're making decisions now because they are top quality. Shall I forego college altogether at this stage of my life and go on to a professional team in Europe? And there are a number of people who have done it. We've seen Pulisic, who was at Dortmund and now heading to Chelsea. He was at Dortmund as a teenager, and now I think Pulisic is perhaps only 21 at the present time, and we've been seeing him for the last 5-6 years playing for the US. So and a number of others have followed that template, and US now has a number of top players. From the time they could sign as a professional in Europe, they headed in that direction.
Yes.
And the United States now, man, they plan. They don't just go by guess. They sit down and they be strategic on how they're approaching things because they are getting so much better and in the quality and how they plan. They're just unbelievable. I think we don't do that. We need to do a little bit more of that.
It's more like what Doc is alluding to. I think the mentality or the system in the US has been changing to adapt with what the world has been seeing success with, where you have a majority of players now actually looking at the option to forego university because at a point in time it was a natural progression. You know, the players would know that you play in high school, you play well, you get on the national team on a youth academy, but you want to get into university to then be drafted and then look elsewhere. Now, you actually seeing 16, 17-year-olds waiting for 18 just so they could sign outside or even investing in academies in Europe. So I think they are adapting to what the world has been seeing success for over the years. So the first game was actually our Bermuda game.
Right. No, well, before we go that, do you think the four best teams are in the competition?
In the semifinals right now?
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen Costa Rica there. I think Costa Rica, from what I saw, was a better team than Canada. And I think Canada, the physical nature of the Canada play put off the Costa Ricans, especially in that first half. Costa Rica came from behind, tied it up 1-1. And I think they were expecting in the extra time to get at least a goal. It didn't come, but the game had already changed and they were dominating the Canadians. And the Canadians did well in the penalty kicks, and they beat them on penalty kicks. I think Costa Rica, in my opinion, should have been in that 4. But Canada rode their chances and rode their luck, and when a game comes down to penalty kicks, as we all know, anything can happen.
But so if Costa Rica was in, you think that would be the fourth best team in the tournament?
After watching the first round, I even went on record with my friends and said, these are the 4 teams that are going to make it. I missed out on the Costa Rica-Canada match.
What about you, Nora?
For me, I think it's almost like football. The results are shown based on investment sometime at the end of the day. And the reality is we've been seeing what is going on in Canada. So I have to assume that maybe some sort of investment was made a few years before. The fact that Canada and US, they have the majority of persons in the Concacaf region in leadership. You see in Canada now with a professional league. So they have been investing in football. So I believe over the last maybe 3 years or so, they have put a little backing into it. I agree with Doc on the field of play. Costa Rica did look the better team. But I think in the end, if it had to be down to where planning and investment was, maybe I think Canada, those are the 4 top best teams in terms of preparation that are in the semi-final round.
Let's take a break and we pick up when we left off when we come back. Viewers, we'll be right back after the short break.
I saw as a team that we were very eager to go forward, to get into the box, to take chances, shots on goal, and I like that because in the past, too many of our teams have been playing from a defensive position.
Looking for a safe place for the whole family? Well, now you've found it. We are ACTN The Voice, your family-friendly station. Whether it's current affairs, kids and classic TV, sports and community features, Christian and music programming, plus so much more, ACTN is the station for you. Join us each day for programming that puts morals, values, and family first. We are ACTN The Voice, your family-friendly station.
Okay, welcome back, viewers. Guys, before the break, we were talking about whether the best teams made it. Let's break down the games now and see if we can give the viewers a little bit of what really went on and so on. So, Narada, you were saying...
Yeah, our first game was the Bermuda game, which we came out successful 3-1. From, just from the average statistics, what went on, we had Aurora Wilson with 2 goals in that game, the Gangs with 1, We had 18 shots on goal, 6 being on target. So that's like, what, about a 33% in terms of shots. And it was a 400-plus passing possession game. A 300-plus passing game with a 49% in terms of our possession, which in the end of it, it happened to be our highest passing game and one of the games that we had the highest possession. But I think it was a result that was expected. I think it was what we had on paper as more or less our best players. We got to feel out where they are at the moment. So I think it was a good result. It was a good start. Any tournament you would want to start like that, and it kind of set us up to see what we expect from the players. So I was quite satisfied with that game. I think we were a bit worried about some of the names we weren't too sure on the team, but I think those guys lived up to expectation, and that was a good start.
But that was the easiest game, and we only had 49% possession. They had more possession than us.
That's what it's concerning about it. But I guess with 18 shots and 6 on target, but then 3 converting to goals, then it's something, the stats are there to analyze, to see. Then after, you would see what happened, and you would see why the results were what it was.
Okay.
Right. When I looked at that game, there's several things that impressed me about Trinidad in that game. Perhaps because we were playing against a weaker team.
Correct.
But there was an effort to go forward and look for goals. And especially from Arahu Wilson, I think he's a player who could play at a higher level. And he has impressed me. I've seen him before, and he's impressed me, playing in that number 9 role up front. But I saw as a team that we were very eager to go forward, to get into the box, to take chances, shots on goal. And I like that because in the past, too many of our teams have been playing from a defensive position. Now, it left holes in our defense. And unless you have quality defenders back there, you're going to be in a lottery game, which we were close to having Bermuda equalize with a penalty. Bermuda threw away a penalty and should have had an equalizer there, and the last 10 minutes would have been, scrambling for a win. But there were things about that game that impressed me. What did not impress me was the fact that, and this had a lot to do with the possession, we were giving away the ball after 1 or 2 passes. We could not string 4, 5, 6 passes together on a regular basis. And the patience sometimes was lacking. We have to be a little more patient, especially when we were leading at the time. I think we were leading 2-0 at the time. And at that time, we have to be making them chase the ball a little bit and moving the ball around the field, especially at the back and in midfield. And perhaps because of our preparation, and that's why I didn't want to be too critical of the team, we just weren't familiar enough with each other to have any kind of passing game that warranted the oohs and ahs from anybody watching on. But I liked the aggression going forward. I liked Arahu Wilson in that game. And that's why I was a lot disappointed in the second game when he was moved from where he was most successful.
Yeah.
Right. Do you think that would be inexperience with the coaching?
Well, I wasn't in the camp, but here was a player who in the first game showed me, this fella has quality in that striker's role, and he's big and he's strong and he's quicker and he's taking shots on goal. His finishing was good, and I'm looking forward to him in the second game. And I see him start on the right-hand side, and a new striker is up front.
Yeah.
Nixon is up front, and so I'm saying to myself, this boy Nixon must be something else if he can move. Arahu Wilson out of that position, and Nixon disappointed because he didn't have the touch to hold up the ball that Arahu Wilson had. He had a little pace, but eventually I think he probably will be a decent player. But he's at a growth spurt right now. Okay. Where he's a tall, gangly player. And when you are a tall, gangly player, sometimes at 17 you could look a little clumsy and whatnot until you pass your major growth spurt. And I expect him to be a much better player playing at under 20 level and further on.
Yeah. Same thing for me with the Jamaica. That would have been the second game would have been Jamaica. We came out 3-2 with that game. And as Doc alluded to, Arahu Wilson had 1 goal in that game, and the new striker, which would have been Shepherd, had 2. again, now the statistics say 9 shots on goals, 6 on target.
Shepherd actually played on the left.
Played on the left, sorry, right, correct. So now
Nixon
we're
was in
down
middle.
to a 75% in terms of on target, 41% possession, 285 passes. So now our passes went down against Jamaica. For me, just like Doc, I was a little worried with Araho Wilson going on the wing. But it shows he still had a goal. So it shows he's our, he is the guy to put the ball in the back of the net, And then you had Shepherd, another great player, putting in 2 goals. And then it goes on to the other games where you see when those changes were made, that the guys probably weren't as comfortable when it's new persons up front, because these guys have a chemistry that, Araho Wilson is a very risky player in terms of he goes and he gets the ball in certain positions, or he at least, if the ball is in a particular position, he still tries to get a foot, a head, a touch on it at some point in time when many players may hold back. So that for me, just like Doc said in the first game, that is what I looked for. And in the second game, you saw it to some extent, but it dropped drastically because he wasn't in the position, or they weren't in the position to do it again. Those guys are attack-minded, and they were playing an attacking type of football, which again, Trinidad has lost some sort of, we've lost that sort of identity over the years. And I think that change in the position of the players affected us, because now we see it was a 3-2 game, which meant it could have gone any direction also.
This is a Jamaica game, right?
Correct.
Do you think, though, that I seen a nice, great little striker up front for Jamaica? I can't remember his name, though, but I think that game, Jamaica was disappointing to me, because the game before, they had played a lot better. So, and they come against Trinidad and something was wrong with them.
Yeah.
Well, we have to give Trinidad and Tobago some credit, because Trinidad matched them and didn't allow them to play their natural game.
Right.
And so initially we fell back. Trinidad fell back into a block around at about half line. But then we realized, look, we need to push against Jamaica a little tighter. And when we did and we pressed, we were more positive, and we started to get a little more possession of the ball. Again, possession, I don't know what the statistics were for possession in that game.
But game 41.
We cannot possess the ball at crucial times in a match. And when people are coming at you, and that possession doesn't just come from the fact that the technique is poor, which is a number one thing. The ability to retain the ball has a lot to do with technique, has a lot to do with runs off the ball by your fellow players, and it has a lot to do with your tactical understanding of awareness on the field of play. And so it's a lot of knowledge about the game itself. And it was disappointing to me that even in the second game, we had not yet sorted it out, that we needed to get more possession of the ball so that we would be in a more advantageous position. Again, preparation is the key to all of that, and we had a subpar preparation. We all know that. But you keep on waiting to see a Trinidad team that is confident on the ball and playing around the ball at the back and in midfield, and then looking for quality balls to the strikers, and we're not seeing that. That is not in our football at all.
Yeah.
I looked at the game and we were not technically strong at all. Man. I almost thought in our North-South game, I seen college players who was
Older players.
technically strong.
Older players. But yes, we have some quality technical players at I say, under 20 level.
Okay.
But some of these fellas are not quite there yet. There's a little boy that I just want to talk about, because I think he came from having been a week or two earlier at Nakid's Academy and played in Madrid, in the tournament in Madrid there, De Leon. And he looks like a player, when he didn't start, He didn't start in the Bermuda game,
No,
but
I think
came on.
Jamaica.
And in one of the games, I think he got a start. And he looks like a player who has a reasonable touch and awareness of how to play the ball around and whatnot and how to be patient. I heard he's only 15 and he's a youngster and is coming up, but he has great potential, I think, because of the kind of tactical awareness and touch that he's showing at this age.
Okay, well, let's take another break, and when we get back, we'll pick up where we left off.
But I was still an advocate for that amount of changes wasn't necessary. I think we could have even gone in the first half with probably our better team, see how they phase against Mexico, then make the changes to preserve, because we understand we've qualified.
Looking for a safe place for the whole family? Well, now you found it. We are ACTN The Voice, your family-friendly station. Whether it's current affairs, kids and classic TV, sport and community features, Christian and music programming, plus so much more, ACTN is the station for you. Join us each day for programming that puts morals, values, and family first. We are ACTN The Voice, your family-friendly station.
Okay, welcome back, viewers. Okay, so our second game was Jamaica, and then our third game was...
Mexico.
Was who? Mexico.
Correct.
Oh, Lord. Okay. I'll open it up, man. Go ahead. Anyone of you
Well, I'll
guys.
start off because I was bombarded by the group that meets every Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. to play a little football, and they could not understand why we did not match Mexico with our best team. And I was trying to defend the coach, being the devil's advocate, by saying he had already qualified for the next round. His players weren't well prepared, and a number of them probably were not very fit. And you were now going into a crucial game 2 days later, so you were given a chance for your first 11 to rest. But people didn't want to hear that at all because of the nature of, they were looking at the result and whatnot. But the strategy going before the game was played, you couldn't be totally critical of the coaching staff and the technical staff, because Mexico changed 8 of their players. And they were going with a second string squad. And what they were doing, they were saving their players, because these games were coming thick and fast every two days. And for young men of this era, because
I think that's the key.
of this era, to recover and play games 3 in a week is tough. In your era, in my era, that was...
I can't comprehend that at all.
But that is the truth of the recovery period that they needed in this era. And as a result, the squad that was put on the field was a patchwork squad. Because even Shepard, who had scored and looked lively forward on the left in attack, was placed in a left-sided defensive role.
Correct.
And now none of the forwards who had played in the first 2 games were playing. And we saw totally different strikers. Young Gary Griffith was up front alone, running around, looking for balls, and playing against Mexico. His first start for Trinidad and Tobago, and he had a baptism of fire. And in midfield, we had some new players as well as in defense. And the key problem was that these defenders weren't coordinated with each other.
Correct.
And the Mexicans smart enough and talented enough to know, just bring the ball over in between the 2 central defenders, and I think 3 or 4 headers were scored in that game.
To the back. Yeah.
Because it was simple to just get the ball over the head of the first defender and in between the second defender and the striker was coming in, and good quality strikers. You know, if you're playing for Mexico and you're on the second team in under 17, you're still quality. And we were blown out of the park.
Yeah. Well, to start with the start of that game, it was a 5-0 ending. We had 2 shots on goal, 0 on target, 27% possession. So we've even gone down to half of what we were maintaining before. 204 passes. And for me, the biggest factor was the fact that we were now seeing Shepherd playing at a left-back position. I think there were about 6 changes, if I'm not mistaken, on that team. The majority being up front, 1 or 2 in the back. And just like Doc said, it was headers coming in, set plays, and you were finding, I can't remember the name of the player, but either the number 17 or the number 4 constantly just being on the back of these players. Now, when I looked back, I realized he did play in the games, 1-2 of the games before. But it just showed that whatever expectation he had of his teammates was not happening, so he was catching himself holding up on one player, realizing nobody's on the guy that the ball is coming to, and constantly running back and just reaching when the ball had already gone into the back of the net. For me, I totally understand the strategy. Football is a strategic game. There are reasons you make certain changes, but I was still an advocate for that amount of changes wasn't necessary. I think we could have even gone in the first half with probably our better team, see how they phase against Mexico, then make the changes to preserve, because we understand we've qualified. Reason only being, these players are young players. They are good players. And for me, we need to test ourselves against the best opposition more frequently. So what we had now is that, as Doc said, a baptism of fire of players who've never played or having their first cap at that level, playing against the best team. I don't know how much development that would do for them, opposed to the players who are our better players, who have played the Bermuda, now played Jamaica. So you're constantly progressing, and now we see against Mexico. If they fared well, great. We know Honduras will be the same thing. If they didn't fare too well, we've just invested in their development. But what we had is that they've played Jamaica, they've played Bermuda, they didn't get Mexico. So how could we really match up where our best players stand? And I think just for that reason, I was a bit disappointed that we didn't get more of our players playing the right position that they played against Mexico. But again, it's the strategy of the coach in resting the players. I did get some information from the staff that it was due to the fact that a lot of the players, starting players, were sore and their fitness level, well, they were feeling fatigued. But then there was a break, if I'm not mistaken. It wasn't 2 days, it was probably about 3 days for the round of 16. So I thought maybe if they played, even if it's just a first half, maybe a 60 minutes, they could have probably rested 3 days, and they would have been, they didn't need to touch the ball. They could have just done a 2-day rest and then come out against the Honduras. And they would have played almost the same way they played against Honduras this time, but at least they would have had a Mexico game in the bag for them.
What it looked like to me is, if the coaches made a decision, they are absolutely crazy and out of their minds. Or they either get instructions outside, above them, play so-and-so or play so-and-so, because it's horrible. To put what we put on the field, it was horrible. So that has to come from instructions to play somebody's child, or the coaches, they had to be crazy to say, I'm going to set my best players down. For what? We trying to, because we didn't have much competition, right? Yeah. To get this together. So we go the shorter competition and shorter practice games and all that. So this is a chance to do that, to get the guys playing as much as possible, to make it happen. So
I will go on record and say that was a coaching decision, a technical group and a coaching decision. I don't think the coaches took instructions. No, they made that decision, and it was primarily based on looking forward to that game in the round of 16 where they had already qualified, and they wanted to preserve the legs of their players. similar to what Mexico was doing. Mexico made 8 changes, but Mexico could afford to make those 8 changes.
We can't.
We can't.
Yeah. Right.
All right, and that's the problem. And yes, I agree with Narada. It would have been better to play them and then bring on the reserves. But you have to remember, only 3 reserves could come on.
Yeah.
So if you're playing them, you in this way that our coaches did it, I think a full 7 or 8 players rested for that Honduras game. If we had done it the way Narada had talked about and the way that we might have wanted it, perhaps only 3 players from the first 11 would have been rested going into that game against Honduras. And that game against Honduras, it was felt that Honduras had not played all that well in the first round. And so Honduras was beatable.
Yeah.
And the people I think they were looking at that if we get by Honduras, we would shock everybody by reaching so far in this tournament and be 1 game away from possibly going
World Cup
to an under-17 World Cup.
Is that our best under-17 players that we have in this country?
I say no, and I'll tell you why I say no. When you prepare for only, or you look for players and you start preparation for only a month or 2 in Trinidad and Tobago, you never get the best players. Never, ever. I've been through that many times throughout the years, and you never. It takes actually, I would say, a full year and more of scouting across Trinidad and Tobago to get the best junior players. And what was good about this was that we went outside, something that we almost never do.
And bring players.
And we got players. Perhaps a number of those players were brought in because they were active at the time.
Correct.
They were active and playing in academies and whatnot. And they perhaps may have shown up better than the players who were at home. Another reason why I'm saying that these aren't the best players, because I went out recently to watch an under-17 game between W Connection and Club Sando. And I saw at least 3, possibly 4 players on those 2 teams who, in my opinion, should have been, if not on a starting 11, on at least a 20 for Trinidad and Tobago. Those two teams, and I'm sure there are others, I'm sure Jablote or somebody else probably has 1 or 2 themselves, or a civic center. But on that team, I saw players who I felt would have come close to going abroad, or not just as a starter, but perhaps as a reserve.
Yeah.
You know, I looked at Civic Center under 17, and I don't qualify them to be national players. But they're better than some of what I saw there. And also, they're leading the Pro League, the under 17. Mm-hmm. So that means at least some of them, I may be too hard on them, but they stay home. You take some under 17 that I don't think should be even on any team.
Yeah, but Steve, unless you are preparing a team and scouting and bringing in and looking at players for over a year, it takes over a year. I've done it with 2 or 3 groups over a year and a half sometimes. I think the adequate period of time for preparation for these tournaments is 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years before the tournament, you should be grooming your players, looking at your players, and then by the time the tournament reaches, you should have a reasonable squad.
Let's take a break. Narada, I'll come back with you when we come back. Viewers, we'll be right back.
When you think of it like Canada, how does Canada bring a national team together? Yeah. You know, players from geographical distances far exceeding Trinidad and Tobago. Correct. We are a small country.
Yes.
Our problem is management systems not putting in place to get those players to the training ground on time.
Looking for a safe place for the whole family? Well, now you found it. We are ACTN The Voice, your family-friendly station. Whether it's current affairs, kids and classic TV, sport and community features, Christian and music programming, plus so much more, ACTN is the station for you. Join us each day for programming that puts morals, values, and family first. We are ACTN The Voice, your family-friendly station.
Okay, welcome back, viewers. Nurada, let me let you come in with what you had to say.
Yeah,
on
my
that.
views on it, I would agree with Doc. I would say no. But I believe what my issue is that I think there may have been about 3 players, and I agree with Doc. I think it's a great team. I believe the starting players deserve their spot. But in terms of the other 10 or 11 players, to make up the 22-man squad, I believe we could have gotten, there are about 3 players there that could have been replaced with players that we've seen across the country, whether in the secondary school leagues, whether in the youth pro league. So I think we had about 3 or 4 players that if you search wide, you could have replaced them on that team. Not necessarily only in the starting 11. I believe it's in the other 10 players. But as Doc said, it had to be something that you're going out for over a year, do it. All right, and we got a team brought together last minute. They went abroad. They got some players outside who, again, were active, and that was the result of it. But the hope is that if this team could continue, I think we may see about 3 or 4 persons that could go into that team transition quite easily and replace some of the guys there.
Our football selection and all that has to stop, man. We have to go and start doing the right thing. I mean, if it takes a year to get the squad, we have to do that. But it cannot be a few clubs from a certain part of the country always get the nod to where the players come from. They have players from Cedros to Toco.
Yeah. And I wonder sometimes, just, off the top of your head, when you have a sort of training going on for a period of a year, it is an investment on the parents. Because we don't have the federation banking all of the necessary things for these players to make it. So a player from Cedros, how does he come to a training session, let's just say 3-4 days a week for the next year? To me, it's easier if a player from a particular club, a particular region, a particular infrastructure, family setting, he's more capable of doing that. And in the end, the selection goes down to the commitment. So he may have gone to training every day for a year, not be the best, but the guy from Cedros, who's much better, doesn't have the...
But let me answer that.
Yeah.
Then let training be in San Fernando. So who comes from Port Spain, come to San Fernando. Who comes from Cedros, come to San Fernando. So make it central so everybody can get there.
When you hear about your problems with distance of training and whatnot in selection of players, Trinidad and Tobago, that is something in our favor. We're a small island.
Right.
When you think of like Canada,
right.
How does Canada bring a national team together? Yeah. Players from geographical distances far exceeding Trinidad and Tobago.
Correct.
We are a small country.
Yes.
Our problem is management systems not putting in place to get those players to the training ground on time. But one of the things that we should be seeing in Trinidad and Tobago, we are supposed to be knowledgeable about it and have a database of every single player from the time they're 11 or 12 years old. And we know if they dropped off the map a little bit and what happened to Johnny from Point Fortin. He was shaping up to be a good player. And we have computer systems. Somebody go and find out about that player. And we should be bringing these players, bringing them into a central training area or major training areas. And our management systems have fallen down. But our small locale is a plus in bringing training teams together. But it seems that we are overwhelmed even by our small status.
Yeah. Where do we have training?
Presently at the Home of Football.
Home of Football?
Well, on this occasion, it was the Home of Football and at Mani Ramjan.
Okay.
At Mani Ramjan. In fact, it was helped out a lot by the police service.
Okay.
The police service helped out a lot in bringing people to training, etc.
Right.
On this occasion.
Right. And again, all right, let's look at some solutions, man. Let's give them some help because I don't think our preparation was the best. I don't think our selection of players was the best. I don't think nothing to me was great. The selection of the coaching, I personally, again, I think we should have got some more experienced coaches and so on and so on. What do you guys think?
One of the things that I would suggest as a solution, and I guess Doc kind of touched on it too, would be, well, I know the police service has an initiative that they're going to run sooner in the future, where they're using like the police stations to have access to the communities and the younger players. I think something like that, if used in the right way, could work. Because we have police stations in every community you could think about. If they have initiatives going on, I think they are the ideal persons to get access to these young players. So to have the database or to provide transport or whatever, because they are probably an organization that pops up in every single community all over. So for me, if you want to reach players far and wide, and we already have an established station in the community, they should be in some way connected to these players that then eventually, when the national team is moving forward, could be brought together. It doesn't have to do with who is in charge or whatever the case is. I think the police service they have the best plan or infrastructure to provide something like that.
Right.
I have always said that we need a small group. I'm saying no more than 3 people, an IT group on staff at the TNTFA, being paid to have database on all our footballers, not only for the press, but in truth and in fact, for us as a scouting method, for scouting players and making sure we can't afford in Trinidad and Tobago to lose one talented player. And we talked last week about the number of players who don't develop after showing talent at a young age. We can't afford to lose one because we're such a small nation. Larger nations can lose their players. We can't afford to lose one. We have to have better management systems, better management of the data on these players so that if we lose them, we could get back to them very quickly and find out what we need to put in place so that they get back on stream.
How do we select our national players? I mean, back in the day, we had a selection committee, right? And we bring players together and we say to the coach, here's your players. Today, what do they do for that? Because one coach can't pick all players all over this country. So what is happening now for that?
Well, for most of the coaches have what's called screening sessions, and they go to area screening sessions. They go in one area north in one weekend, go in another area, and then they would choose players. What I think was done on this basis was that the under-15 team that played in the previous tournament was used as the base, and then players were added to that under-15 team. But screening going all over the country has been used as one method. The other method that's been used is you come to a central area like the Atto Boland Stadium, and people come in on separate weekends, and then you see them. The method I liked was what was used with the under-15s. I had the pleasure of traveling even over Tobago and to watch players play. And on successive weekends, these players at under-15, having been prepared for a month, 6 weeks before, were playing against each other. And you were able to see them in a 60-minute game playing against each other in various locales and various weekends, and even all the way over in Tobago. And from that group, a national under-15 team was selected. I think that's the way we have to go.
Okay, and also in the colleges league, do they have like how we used to have a senior grade team and a junior team?
Well, yes, most colleges have now a senior team under-16, under-14.
Okay.
Yes.
So that should be
Well,
the key.
those players are brought up from those teams as well, but most of them go into their zonal teams off season, and from the zonal teams may have a team themselves, a team of 25, which they are attached a coach to. Ron Lafferty was up in the East.
They have zonal football going on in that?
In that under 15, that was just for selection of a team. So they brought back the zonal concept to be able to select that national under 15.
So they had a zoning point area?
Yes, it was a southwest.
Southwest? I didn't know that because I haven't heard about that at all. But that would be a good idea to have zonal football before. And I agree with that. But
so I think, just what Doc was saying, I think that's one of the better methods or a more successful method. I think when you do the screening at a central location or you have screening on this particular day, you miss out on opportunities in case anybody, has gone through something. If someone happened to be away or was ill on that day, I think you miss the opportunity. But when you have a consistent, thing happening for a long period of time, seeing them in different situations, one kid might not play good on one day, but the next day he does. You have a better evaluation system. But again, it would need a commitment financially for persons to put their time out to doing that. I also like an option of having selected persons in particular areas that have a relationship with coaches and clubs around the area where they constantly go in and looking at the football. So they, at the end of the day, could have maybe 10 players, 15 players that they could say, hey, these 10 or 15 I've seen for over the last 6-7 months, constant good players, blah, blah, blah. They're dealing on the ground, and they could just put forward these names and then bring them into a larger setting where we could now see them. But when you just hold one-off screenings, or I think that you're not getting the best because of various factors that play a part in persons getting to a screening. So the under-15 model, if it could be repeated at different levels, probably would be the more successful one.
Okay, final grade. What are we grading that under-17 team?
For me, I would go with 5, simply because I think it's what it was expected for them to come out of the group and probably not get past the round of 16. So a great team, I think that gives them all 5 points, but expected, so I don't think they went past anything that I expected.
5 out of what, 25?
10.
Oh, 10, okay.
So I give them half.
I wouldn't be as generous. I would probably give them a 4. I thought there were individuals who showed me that they have a hope for the future to play for Trinidad and Tobago senior team. But on the whole, as a team, I would give them a 4.
I probably would, just for the effort for some of the kids, I'd probably give them a score, but I was not impressed at all. And hopefully that would change. Okay, guys, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
ACTN, thank you for giving us the opportunity to bring it to our viewers. Viewers, thank you for tuning in. And viewers, we have summer camp, Field of Dreams summer camp in Mike over Point Fortin on August 5th. Send your kids out. It'll be 2 weeks. Don't forget, we have that going as well. We have a Facebook page. You can check us out. We have an email address, fieldofdreamstt@gmail.com. You can drop us a line. The show's ended. Go in peace. My name is Steve David.